Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter. This is great news. You know, we talk about the importance of what if football stars decided to go with HBCUs. And so Travis Hunter, he is the nation's #1 recruit. He has committed to joining the HBCU Jackson State, which is a phenomenal. That's, of course, where Deion Sanders is. It's been a lot of talk about this. Deion Sanders is doing great things being a part of Jackson State. And I love this. And he did a flip going from Florida State to Jackson State. So it's historic for HBCUs. And I know it's complicated to ask young people to make these kind of decisions because oftentimes there's better deals with, you know, a Florida State. But shout out to him. I don't know what Deion Sanders said or did, but he said there would be a big surprise, and there was. So I think it's phenomenal, and I hope other young people can follow in his direction. What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, so I was surprised. I mean, Deion said the day before signing day that he was going to shock the world, and then this dropped in our lap yesterday. So, you know, I'm an HBCU grad at Hampton University. I love the fact that Deion Sanders at Jackson State is getting the best recruit in the country. This is something that never happens for HBCUs, especially in football. So this is momentous. One guy called it, one of the folks that runs one of these recruiting websites, 247, called it the biggest event in signing day history ever, that for this young man to switch from Florida State to Jackson State. So I think it's good, but this is just the beginning. If this doesn't lead a wave of other recruits doing the same thing. I mean, it used to be that HBCUs were the place where Black athletes went, that then went on to become Hall of Famers, folks like Walter Payton and Jerry Rice. And after integration, you know, and the resources that some of these bigger white state schools have and private schools, a lot of those Black athletes went to where the resources were, and that left HBCUs hurting, not just athletically, but even academically. And I think we're starting to see Black students, athletes, reclaim HBCUs for themselves instead of going to where the resources have been of late. But a couple notes here, and then I'll be quiet. First is, we saw something similar like this a year or two ago at Howard University. They had a 4 or 5-star basketball player, Mocker Maker, who went to Howard instead of going to a big school and didn't have a good year. And there were a lot of folks saying, see, we told you if you had gone to a better, more established program, you would have more opportunities in the pros. And this kid is not going back to Howard because his profile dipped. That wasn't because he chose an HBCU. He chose an HBCU that wasn't a strong basketball school. If he had gone to North Carolina Central with the hometown boy, LaVelle Moton, I think it would have been different. This is also, we're seeing something similar to this on the university side, the academic side, with Nicole Hannah-Jones. Remember, she was the #1 draft pick, so to speak, going to University of North Carolina, and decided that wasn't going to work because of how they treated her. And now she's at Howard University, another win for HBCUs. And HBCU enrollments are up, especially since over the last decade or so. And this is, again, Black students not being happy with the state of America or white institutions and deciding to go where they feel more welcomed. The last thing I'll say on this is that if this doesn't lead to a promising NFL career for this young man, or a lot of exposure, or even money making, because college athletes can now make money off of their likeness, then this may just be an anomaly instead of a leading indicator of a growing trend. So the success for Jackson State happened yesterday, but the success for Black athletes in HBCU programs writ large will be determined by what happens next with Travis Hunter at Jackson State.
You know, it's interesting, Reese, and I think bringing up Nicole Hannah-Jones is just a great example. For all the critiques that, you know, people have of social media, and I hate when folks say woke culture and blah, 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 blah. I think part of it, having more voices out there, I think being able to I know social media can be a nightmare, I get it, but I think something has happened where there is a generation of people, of young people, who are just more aware. You know, when you see a name trending on social media, you know, when I was younger, I didn't know who the former Senate Majority Leader was when the Republicans had control of the Senate. I didn't know that thing. My 19-year-old sister knows these people now. She knows that Mitch McConnell's a demon. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know he isn't the former leader, isn't leader now, but he was previously. Like they're finding out names of these people who are trying to actively take away your rights, and they're making specific decisions to say, well, wait a minute, with going to this traditional institution. I'm going to go to an HBCU. I'm going to focus more on a Black-owned business. I feel like something is happening here. I could be overstating it. But when I saw this young man, Travis Hunter, doing this, I said, yeah, this makes sense. Because I think a lot of young people just see what's going on because of the good and bad of social media. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you see more people kind of redefining what success looks like. Success has always looked like traditional PWI institutions in terms of athletics, and it always looked like going pro. And I think now what we're seeing is that people like Travis are saying that, you know, success is really the entire experience and being celebrated and embraced in a way that he wouldn't have been in Florida State, you know, where they're about churning out wins and bodies, and this is more of building a team and a family and camaraderie, and he's, you know, the star, and this is a huge deal. I don't think it's fair necessarily to put it on him to be the example for, well, this is going to determine how much more success there's going to happen, you know, how many more people are going to be recruited. I think he made an individual decision based on his value system, and I applaud him for that, because so many times people look at you like you've made it when you've made it to these white institutions. And I think, to your point, Nicole Hannah-Jones and Travis Hunter, and, you know, you had other people who have decided to go to HBCUs, are redefining that success is ourselves celebrating ourselves. And I think that's such an important, you know, message to put out there, even if they've made their own individual choices for their own reasons.
But, you know, it also goes to media as well, right? Because, Reese, I've heard you say this. Folks have said, well, why aren't you on MSNBC? Why aren't you on CNN? And you were like, I'm good being on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yeah.
I'm good being on SiriusXM Urban View. And, you know, some folks have told me, I think I got this question yesterday. They were like, oh, you know, why are you on Black News Channel more than MSNBC? Why are you even asking me that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's the perspective. You know, when I was younger, there were people that would say, you know, when your shit is white, it's tight. That horrible narrative. The closer you get to whiteness, the more successful you are. And yeah. So, and this isn't an indictment of anybody on those mainstream networks, but this isn't. It's a broader way that we're looking at things, which I think is kind of beautiful.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I think I've always said this before I was on anybody's Roland Martin or Clay Kane show. When I had 500 followers on Twitter, I was saying Black media, Black media, Black media. Black media truly is the engine of the Black community in terms of the thought leaders and the activists in Black media puts those voices, a variety of the range of voices out there without sanitizing them or filtering them down. And so that's why I value Black media. I don't aspire to be on CNN. I don't aspire to be on MSNBC. That's no knock against them. But I think if you had Roland Martin in a stadium of Black folks, he's going to have more people rushing to him than people who have shows on those networks. And that's no shade to them. I'm just saying, you know, it's all about, for me, I want to, you know, be at the forefront of what our community cares about and what we're talking about without it being, you know, watered down. Because I think a lot of them do have their marching orders. You know, they don't keep it real the way we can keep it real. Which is why when a Don Lemon has a flash of anger, it goes viral. It's like, oh my God, look at Don Lemon. And it's like, well, we do that every day, all day on SiriusXM Urban View and Roland Martin Unfiltered, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it's not all about white is right. We got to get away from that in terms of media, sports, award shows, and politicians. We got a lot of work to do on all those fronts. Especially
award. Just because you win a Grammy or an Oscar does not whatever. But I want to take a moment. I know I said it before. I just want to shout out Deion Sanders. Here's a brother who's doing good work in the lane that he can do good work and actively working to bring talented people to Jackson State. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Somebody who he's an icon in football and is actually doing the work. I just think that's a beautiful thing, and that can't be overstated enough. Shout out to Deion, because I don't know if this would happen without Deion Sanders.
Oh, no, definitely.
It wouldn't have.
Yeah. So shout out to him. We can't, and I think he has a plan. I think he knows what he's doing. And then there was another story. Gosh, I forgot. There was something like Jackson State was going up against another HBCU, and they didn't have the money for their team to be able to train. I'm getting some details wrong, but Deion Sanders put up the money so the team they were going to play against could properly train. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, so that their opposition.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I did not hear that.
And I could have the details wrong, but I know that he made sure the other team could properly train. That's what I'm talking about. That's a beautiful thing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and you know, to add to this, on the black point about black media, you know, it's good that, for example, Jackson State, and I think it's South Carolina State, will play this weekend, I think, on NBC or ESPN. It's good to have those one games. But what Deion Sanders has done at Jackson State is on ESPN 3, 4, 5 times a season now, getting national exposure, which will draw more attention to HBCUs, the specific culture that you get at those games, and allow talent to come there knowing they're going to get exposure. But the other thing is, we don't have to wait for ESPN to gatekeep you know, teams and allow us to see them. There are black media outlets. HBCU Game Day, for example, it's everything you want to know about black sports is on HBCU Game Day. And so we don't have to just go to the places where we traditionally get our sports news from, or our political news from, or any of these things. There are black outlets, black folks doing this stuff on a daily basis. And we just have to be proactive to seek that stuff out and allow, you know, patronize those sites instead of just relying on the traditional places where we get our news.
And speaking of just media and Deion Sanders doing what he's done, I know some folks might be annoyed that I'm going to say this. I do want to shout out, I'm not a fan of his policies when he was in Congress, but J.C. Watts, you know, he was one of the lone black Republicans in Congress, and I'm not a fan of a lot of what he did. Although it's funny, he was against affirmative action when he was running for Congress. Then he got into Congress and he was for affirmative action. So I'm okay for that stunt, but other stuff he did, I'm not for at all, because he was kind of pathologizing black folks. But nonetheless, after he leaves Congress, he basically is one of the co-founders of Black News Channel. That's what you do. Right. So he's a black Republican, and although his policies I did not like, but he's one of the founders and has a lot of great voices on Black News Channel. So this is what you do versus pathologizing black folks or say we're lazy, we're shiftless, we're depending on the government. Why don't you work within your community? And although J.C. Watts was in Congress under he won in a majority white district, nonetheless, I appreciate what he's doing now, and he is working for versus advocating against. And as much as I didn't like all of his policies, I don't think J.C. Watts would have voted against the Voting Rights Act like Senator Tim Scott. So I just want to shout out J.C. Watts as well, and having Black News Channel. Go ahead.
And can I shout out to your point, Ted, about, you know, Brolin, he live streams these games, these bowl games. He's down in Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl, and where ESPN, for instance, would cover the game, they don't cover the halftime performances, which is a huge cultural thing for us. So he has the Black Star Network. He live streams on his page. So to your point, we have to support these Black owned and Black, you know, targeted networks or, you know, streaming services that are showing our stuff.
And one more thing too, just on media, I've said it before, I'll say it again. What Deion Sanders is doing, what we also need for Black media is these powerful Black celebrities to give the exclusive to a Black website or a Black media outlet versus running to Extra or Access Hollywood that won't show you any love. I want to see you on a Black media outlet. That's really important, because Black entertainment, when I used to be in entertainment journalism, which I couldn't stand, but they would always shut us down. But you'll go over to Access Hollywood, they'll give you 5 seconds on air, but a Black media outlet might give you a full feature.
Yep.
So the Black celebrities out there, I know y'all want to go to Vogue and Cosmopolitan and People and Us Weekly, whatever, but bring the exclusive to Black journalists, to Black.
And not just the Shade Room either, child. Don't
just
go to the gossip
Shade Room, you know. Go to Essence, go to The Root, go to The Griot, whatever. Like there's go to Roland Martin Unfiltered. There's ways to do that.
One of the things I think maybe last year or so was a young white student who was a drum major in a predominantly Black high school. He was on all the social media because he had a flavor folks didn't typically associate. But I think he ended up at an HBCU, and he was doing things that Black kids do around the country every day, all day. But he became a big story because of his race. And the other thing on this point, sort of taking the athletic to the academic, is when there's always a story every college admission cycle of a Black student choosing Spelman, Morehouse, Howard, Hampton over Harvard or Yale or Princeton. And people like, why would you turn down an Ivy to go to an HBCU? And the response is, why not? That student's not going to get dumber just because they went to Spelman. They're going to get, like, the talent doesn't go anywhere. The intellect doesn't go anywhere. That child is going to be successful, and they don't need to necessarily have the white cosigner via an institution or some network of good old boys in order to be successful in the country. You can get, if you look at the majority of Black generals and admirals, doctors, lawyers, professionals, period, usually the HBCUs are disproportionately produce those folks relative to PWI. So this idea that folks are sort of cheating themselves out of opportunity and success by attending HBCUs or playing for HBCUs is it's not accurate.
And can I point out, our vice president is an HBCU graduate. Hello, put some respect on it. How many Black VPs have we had that came from an HBCU or came from a PWI? Zero. How many woman vice presidents have we had that have come from a PWI? Zero. It's only been one, and it's her. Okay, so but I want to just comment real quick about the whole money thing, because it really, really, really irks my soul how we have all these litmus tests. You are, and I hate to use the word woke, but forgive me, because white folks have ruined the word woke, but you're not woke enough. If you're over here, if you go to the white institutions, you're not woke enough. And then when you go to the Black institution, then all of a sudden, well, you're not really woke because it's all about the money. I just this crabs in the barrel shit, we got to stop it, because it's terrible. There's always money involved. Somebody is making a coin off of every single one of us. We all work, or we do something where somebody's making a coin off of us. Let this young man, if he got some coin, good for him. Because all these white institutions, they got billions of endowments. They're getting all kind of merchandising, and ain't nobody even batting the eye at that. So come on, get it together, Black people. We got to stop this.